What is in the law? What does the law say as far as consumer rights are concerned? I want us to quickly take a look at that before we get into the conversation I mentioned earlier here. So the Constitution of Kenya, Article 46 says that consumers have a right to, one, of course, information with regard to anything they will be consuming, two, goods and services of reasonable quality, and B, the information necessary for them to gain full benefit from goods and services. These are some of the things that consumers are entitled to or have a right to as per the laws of the land. The consumers also have the right to the protection of their health, safety, and economic interest. And of course, here matters help take center stage as far as allegations of some substances being part of the contraband sugar concerned. Constitution also says that consumers have a right to the compensation for loss or injury arising from defects in goods or services. And of course, when we will be speaking to Stephen Mutoro, the Secretary General of COFEC, it will be really interesting to hear, as the Consumer Federation of Kenya, what is their stand in this saga currently. The Article 46 also says that Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for consumer protection and for fair, honest and decent advertising. And of course, this article applies to goods and services offered by public entities as well as private persons. Just quickly, just taking a look at what the law says as far as consumer rights are concerned, because we've had all sides of the stories. We've had it from the businessmen, we've had it from the politicians, cases in court already. We've seen it from the Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. But what is the missing link from when the importation happens, from the ship to the shelves? This is what we are trying to understand here or establish with this conversation at this hour. Joining me in studio now is William Ojonyo, is the National Chairman of the Kenya International Freight and Warehousing Association. Thank you very much for joining us here in studio. This is a conversation that has taken center stage and has attracted a lot of public interest. I mean, your thoughts, first of all.
Well, clearly, I think we are making the Kenyan more worried than protecting the Kenyan. I have been seeing this through and through, and my feeling is we may need to slow down so that panic is reduced. Yes.
You are the national chairman of the Kenya International Freight and Warehousing Association. I believe you're privy to the kind of processes or procedures that are undertaken as far as consumer goods are concerned, from when they're shipped in but to when they hit the shelves before the consumer purchases it.
Right.
Take us through that.
Well, I think what is important for us to understand is, first of all, once purchase has been done in a supply country, there's a process called PVOC, that is the pre-shipment inspection. Normally, what Kenya Bureau of Standards has done is to appoint competent, qualified partners in supply countries to ensure that anything coming into this country is within the standards, stipulated standards. So this is done before even the purchase is, before the shipment is done.
It's done?
Yes, yes.
So then after that?
Once the shipment arrives in the country, there is the process where the clearing agent comes in now. Clearing agents are also called customs agents. They declare these goods using the documents they have received from the supplier. In this case, let's zero in on sugar, that you get a bill of lading confirming that the sugar has actually been shipped. Yeah. You get the pre-shipment documents, that the certificate of conformity, we call it a COC, with a KEBS certificate, with a KEBS seal, confirming that that's the appointed partner for inspection. And plus the invoice, of course, that gives you the value. Then we make a declaration to customs. Remember, customs are the lead agencies in any type of importation for purposes of not only the quality check, but also border control, so that whatever comes into this country is, first of all, safe, and they become the last person to release that cargo, the last entity to release that cargo. So this, again, goes through the same process. The same agencies are in the points of release. We have the Kenya Bureau of Standards, we have the police, we have KEBS in case we are having something that needs to be checked by KEBS, and all these other government agencies. So once we place that document before them, what they do is to interrogate, confirm the documentation before releasing and allowing you to collect the cargo. Yes.
So then Currently, Kenyans are dealing with two scandals, and many questions are arising on these very procedures you're talking about. We're talking about the sugar scandal and the fertilizer scandal. Is it our laws? Is it our procedures? What is the missing link?
I think first, I look at it and ask myself, when we talk about goods that are already at the shelves, it means they should have gone through all these checks.
Yes.
And all the relevant bodies should have gone through the checks. And what we do in our document, we have a document called a Form C17B. In this document, everybody is supposed to counter-check what is expected of them. So in my view, we are talking about sugar that is already in the country. We need to go back and interrogate who didn't do his job, if they didn't do their job. And everybody's talking about the government agencies.
Yes.
We should understand that the private sector also plays a role. And that's where we come in. That now that we are interrogating and having people taken to court and stuff like that, why don't we ask ourselves to go back to the procedure? Was the procedure followed? I'm keenly following, and I am waiting for a time when we want to zero in on a specific consignment. Go back to the times and ask ourselves, where are the documents that were used to clear this cargo? So that then I am able to produce that cargo as the national chairman. I'm able to get the clearing agent who was used. We look at who then stamped and released, and are they good for human consumption? Because my worry is, we may be making so much noise. I have not heard of anybody who has died because of this.
Yeah.
I have not heard of anybody who is in hospital because of this. And I know that if there is anything we do not play around with, it's the health of the mwananchi. Even as the private sector, we would not condone that. So I am worried that we are talking too much and not interrogating the process.
From some of the consumer rights that we've just taken a look at, the consumer has a right to information about an array of things as far as goods they will be purchasing or consuming are concerned. Do you think that works now? Do you think the consumer is able to get as much information about a product as they can?
They should get that information. I am blaming the people who are supposed to give them that information, because as we speak, like I said, there is so much worry. I mean, you don't know if you're taking poison every single day, yet it's a commodity that is important. I mean, like sugar, we take sugar every day. Fertilizer, we use fertilizer every season. But the question is, are they getting that information according to Article 46, like you put it? They are not, because we are not sharing information as we should. And as clearing agents, we are ready to share this information. Like I said, nothing comes into this country without the input of a clearing agent. Why are we not looking for these clearing agents? I am able to avail them. So I am saying that probably what we need to, again, follow up closely is how to make sure the common mwananchi has the right information for consumption, so that indeed, if we have a problem in the shelves, can we share the nitty-gritty of that problem and zero into how that item came into the country. Let me put it this way, that even when we clear cargo, you must be sure that that cargo is within the shelf life that it's expected to have. For example, if you're getting sugar, it should be fit for human consumption for the next many months and many years for that matter. So why are we talking about sugar that is expired, contaminated, many months into the consumption, and yet that same sugar came into the country with a shelf life? So I think I want to blame us, the entire chain, for working in isolation. And I am waiting for the time we will be brought into the conversation as a private sector, be part of the solution and not the problem.
All right, I want us to bring in now the COFEC, Consumer Federation of Kenya, Secretary General Stephen Mutoro. He joins us live by way of phone. A very good afternoon to you. If you can get me very clearly, we haven't had much from COFEC as far as this sugar and fertilizer scandals are concerned. I mean, where do you stand as the Consumer Federation of Kenya?
Yeah, thank you very much, Akiza. I hope I wish I had a very good voice. You backed me on that. But certainly...
Yes, we can get you.
Yeah, certainly there is a probability that we have been living a lie as a country. For the development that happened over these poisonous sugar issues, I think raises for me a fundamental subject that Kenyans, as consumers, as a government, we've been living a lie. And basically that gentleman saying that no one is sick, no one has died. I don't know at what point he's been able to take a test on himself or all the consumers. But I think that's an issue for another day. What is really fundamental is that we have the law, we have the service providers, we have the regulators, we have government as a policy maker, and the consumer on that one end. So in summary, I think what's really coming out very interesting is that Kenyans have not been having this kind of conversation simply because it has never come out. Our view is that the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Mr. Matiang'i, must be commended very highly for bringing out these issues. You know, of course, at the risk of getting a bit of heat from some quarters, but the point is that we're discussing an issue that has been happening for so long, and yet nobody has ever taken any interest. So as far as we're concerned, yes, the conversation has been very good, and that's why we've not been able to say much, but our interest is to see that the truth comes out of it all.
The conversation we're having in studio now, among the things that have come out is the consumer doesn't seem to be getting relevant information about what they're getting in from COFEC. I mean, do you think a Kenyan can go to court just by basis of they don't know what they're consuming anymore?
Akisa, the law is very clear. In fact, I began by saying the law, because the law brings all of us together. And you realize all these other people, the policymakers, the regulators, I said, they're in one end, you can call them the back end. But then you'll also get the front end. The role of a consumer is simply to buy and pay for a product. And the law is very clear. Under Article 46, you've gone through that and you've mentioned that the consumer has the right to information necessary for them to gain full benefit. Now, that information has not been forthcoming, and in cases where it has been forthcoming, it has not been sufficient. And hence, Article 46(1)(d) allows for compensation. Why we've been very quiet is actually we've been able to ask a number of consultants. They are monitoring all these kind of the developments as they unfold. But eventually, we see ourselves as COFEC, putting through a very, very watertight case, legal action, a class action suit that will require compensation, treatment, and for anybody who has actually had an injury, direct or consequential as a result of the so-called poisonous sugar, then definitely, yes, we are going to act.
There's also a conversation of this could be trade wars and the consumer is being trapped between wars of people in this particular kind of business. I mean, what are your thoughts? Even
before the time of Jesus on earth, you'll always find that people in business, of course, quarreling, and we really don't want to get into the tough wars of privateers or profiteers. Really, that one is not within our domain, but we know it's happening. But what is fundamental to us, in the older noises, in the older mixes, the question is the word poison and human safety and consumer safety. For us, that is really fundamental, and we are so happy that I think, first of all, the DPP is acting on the KEBS. We think it's not exhaustive, but I think it's done very well. But at the same time, I think the questions must be asked. What happens on human safety? Profiteers can get losses, they can be able to get compensation. But if you lose a life, if you become, for example, unable, your livelihood is messed as a result of these injuries, then what happens? So our concern is more about the safety, and the law is abundantly clear.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking to us. Stephen Mutoro, Secretary General, Consumer Federation of Kenya, saying they're most interested in safety for the consumer. I want us to wind down the conversation now.
Right.
You've heard what the Secretary General of COFEC has to say. I mean, what do you expect to see in the coming days?
Well, I expect us to share more in-depth information, because basic information is there. Every time you have a commodity, it has an expiry period. I think that is the basic information that we want to now interrogate. If this sugar or this fertilizer was meant to be safe for this number of period, then is it correct? Is it true? And then if this sugar was checked and found to be to be fit for human consumption, is it true that what was checked was right? So I think let us interrogate the information that we already have more in depth. I know for a fact that you cannot have any cargo leave the port without this And therefore, what we need to interrogate now is this information correct, or somebody lied to us in terms of giving the information? Nothing can leave the port without a certificate of compliance. So was that certificate fake? Or somebody didn't do his job at the point of origin? Those are the things we need to deal with, so that by the time we are now talking to the consumers, we make them feel a little safe and think of the future.
Thank you very much for joining us here. William Ojonyo is the National Chairperson of the Kenya International Freight and Warehousing Association, as well as the Managing Director, the Keynote Logistics. Thank you once again for joining us here on KTN News Desk. We continue to interrogate the kind of information that is out there from what the guests in studio are talking about. How true is the information that is out there currently with regard to contraband sugar as well as fertilizer? We'll be very keen on this particular story here on KTN News Desk. Our teams are on the ground to just get as much information as they can and cover all possible angles of this. But for now, let's take a quick break. A lot more is still lined up for you here on KTN News Desk, so don't go too far.
This is KTN News.